This is Dr. Charles Parker, and you're listening to Core Brain Journal. It's a place where I connect both fresh discoveries and interesting different perspectives from advanced mind science with the realities of real people and everyday life down on Main Street. Well, welcome, folks. Dr. Charles Parker here at Core Brain Journal one more time. Here we're in the holiday season. This will probably come out after the new year. And we have a very interesting guest. I say that all the time, but I'm so enthusiastic about the privilege of talking to the people we talk to. And today's guest is double that note. He is an exceptional individual, Dr. Greg Tefft. He's he was in Malibu. I don't know where you are now, Greg, but welcome, Greg. We look forward to talking to you.
Hey, Dr. Chuck, how are you doing today? And thank you for having me on, by the way.
Good. So I want to do an intro, Greg, and we'll get squared away. The thing that I really do like about Greg's information is he is a serious maven on body measurement and how it affects mind science. And I told him we were warming up. It's really a 2-3 hour conversation. And what we might do is just get started. And if there's something that we find of interest or the audience finds of interest, you know, our listeners can just drop a note, and we could do another one somewhere down the road. So what we're going to do, first of all, let me just mention Dr. Greg Tefft is a fellow who's written a book, which is going to be a giveaway. Thank you so much, Greg, for putting that book up for our audience. Your Personal Life, Measuring What Your Specific Body Needs to Live Long, Lean, and Healthy, Strong and Better for the rest of your life. I messed up that byline a little bit, but it's live, lean, long, strong, and better. There you go. So, and that book will be available here as you have a opportunity to enter a drawing for that. So, Greg's an interesting guy. He had a situation of being a Olympic athlete who fell apart. Let me tell you a little bit about it. He's the world's leading expert in personalized nutrition and the author of the internationally best-selling book, Your Personal Life, Measuring Your Body, as we talked about it. He's a renowned board-certified naturopath and chiropractic physician. He's 3-time natural Mr. America, former Olympic sports doc, and drugless clinician to the stars out there outside of Hollywood and Malibu. He says that every illness can be traced to what we put in our mouths. Guess what? You are not what you eat. Instead, you are what you retain from what you eat. And a simple hair test shows exactly what minerals your body is missing, and replacing them gets you on the way to wellness. Yes, we were talking about hair analysis. So, Greg, tell us what you're doing right now before we get started with the rest of the interview. What are you doing now?
Well, we have put together a company called Arbor Vitae Nutrition. People want to visit the website arborvitaenutrition.com. We more or less are reaching the masses with a self-help program, a series of test measurements we've isolated from the thousands of tests you can do on the human body that give people the heads up as to what foods and what vitamins they really need at the moment for maximum wellness, for most efficient metabolism. And so that's what we're working on. We're going to be expanding in a number of ways. We already have, for years now, I've been international. I've been sending this particular test out to 15, 18 countries. It's now in 8 languages, now in 76 countries. It's just a great self-help program. And that's what the bottom line is, helping people to help themselves. And as you know, there are just a lot of gray areas in conventional medicine that we take up the slack on. And I just wanted to help people to do this for the lowest cost and the least complexity and the highest convenience. So that's really what I'm up to. And we've got Hollywood power behind it. You'll see on the website, the president of Universal Studios and others. I work with so many movie stars and actors and athletes in the past and all that he'll tell you about that. He produced over 500 movies, including the Rocky movies. I worked with Dolph Lundgren exclusively and a whole bunch of other actors at that time to get him in great shape. But what we do, this technology and what we were talking about earlier, works for everybody at every level. And it promotes wellness, and it's all based on no guesswork, the scientific method. And that's what we need to put at people's doorsteps, to take up the slack on what conventional medicine can't do for you in the moment.
That's where we really have a match, because this is what goes on in my practice every day. And, it's the whole question of the evolution of mind science. We're really in a major transformational moment in mind science. And you well know this, because you can see people get better when you do just some basic tests. So let's talk about those tests. Let's talk about if you were to select the 3 most important tests that you were so enthusiastic about that turned your clients around so dramatically, what would be the 3 most important tests from your perspective?
I would say minerals, sex and stress hormones, and toxins. Those 2 categories. Let me put in perspective for everybody. There are 3 categories of biochemical substances that determine your wellness destiny, no matter what your genes say. They are nutrients like minerals, vitamins, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamin-like substances. They are cell regulators like stress hormones. You've heard of cortisol, adrenaline, those kinds of hormones, and sex hormones, of course. Even transfer proteins, and we can even put DNA in there. And then there's over 400 toxins now that can get into you: solvents, heavy metals, phthalates, all kinds of stuff you wouldn't believe. And ultimately, there are about 3,000 tests that can be used to determine the balance of all of those. And that's what my life's work was committed to. But the reality is, and you just brought it out, Chuck, you just said it, the idea is to simplify this, because we found that the most common denominators are really having to do with minerals. We found that if calcium and magnesium were in a certain proportion, you needed more B6. So it saves money on a urine test that would show B6. At the same time, depending on the proportion, it could mean that you need more or less tryptophan. It could show an amino acid. I mean, it's just all connected. And, we reversed engineered this by testing literally 123 million people since 68, and then backtracking the data and then interpolating it, so the computer actually can make up for a lot of the test taking that isn't necessary anymore. So to me, though, the front line, the best things to start with are minerals, because they have the most power over metabolism, followed by cell regulators, particularly stress and sex hormones, and then toxins, everything from mercury to, you name it, vinyl chloride. That kind of information can help us to clean up and rebalance your body in a jiffy.
Great, Greg. Let's get the magnifying glass out and take a moment to look a little tighter at this situation. So let's break them down, because we talked a little bit about testing, and we've had one episode on hair analysis. Let's really talk about the nutrients and the hair analysis first. I'd like to break it down for our listeners so we can say, okay, this is the test that we're kind of thinking would be the most important test in this regard, and take all 3 of those and just break them down for our listeners. So let's start with minerals. And minerals, you're really talking about hair analysis, right?
Yeah, well, we use hair as a specimen because it registers what moves in and out of cells through blood over a longer period of time, and we can use the pattern to predict nutritional needs better. If we just take a mineral from blood, it changes very much on the hour, and there are certain properties in blood that affect it. It doesn't reflect cellular usage directly. The same with urine. Urine is more about what minerals are excreted, as an example, not what's really being absorbed and utilized. Can't use stool. You can't use, there's different, white blood cells might have an answer, but the test is so expensive, it's not usable. So we just found out hair is the best place to start to get the patterns of minerals, from which the patterns of vitamins, aminos, fatty acids, even hormones can be derived from. So we know, like, if zinc and copper are off by a certain amount, in a male, testosterone and estrogen will be off by a certain amount. In a female, progesterone and estrogen will be off by a certain amount. And this was more or less determined by doing comparative testing, by putting all the tests side by side. And Chuck, I want to tell you, one of my claims to fame is, of course, working at Malibu Health and Rehab on all the top athletes, the rich and famous, so-called, being on CBS This Morning and all that. And I did, in those days, all 3,000 tests. I did every test on the books because there's no money restriction when you're dealing with Sachs or the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, or any of these other actors or athletes, Olympic team people that have to win a gold medal. So I got to put all the tests side by side, and I'll be darned, I found that as I came onto this technology, that minerals really were the best indicator of what other things were doing. But it didn't reverse down, because you can't fix B6 without adjusting calcium and magnesium. You can't change tryptophan. There's a place to start and a place to end with this. And when CBS this morning, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Bob Torman, but he used to conclude the segments I did. Dr. Bob used to say, what this Dr. Tefft does is like what Thomas Edison said he's going to use. He doesn't need drugs. He's going to use the care of the human frame, nutrition, natural methods to fix people. He's doing this with all this great technology. He's testing all these people, and he's able to find disease before it even manifests in a doctor's office and fix it, because most diseases are diet-related, et cetera, et cetera. But it's very expensive, very complicated, and therefore it's quintessential to the rich and famous. So at that point, everybody I'm telling you, you wouldn't believe that some of the people I've treated and worked with, the phones rang off the hook, and I had a 6-month waiting list, to say the least. But he got me thinking. That got me thinking, hey, how about finding something that can shortcut this whole process? And that's what we're doing now. That's what I'm describing right now, this program we have right now. So people don't have to be rich and famous, don't have to spend a lot of money, don't have to go to Malibu, that kind of thing. Just can help themselves. Now, I'm not promising everybody it's the end all, because they might need some other help. But the most beautiful part of this is this particular procedure, these minerals, their imprints, their patterns. They can not only predict diseases before they happen, because we looked at well people, sick people, the heaviest people, the lightest people, the best athletes, the worst. We found that there's a lot of very similar patterns in all these diseases that develop. But in getting those minerals out on paper, we can achieve the most results in the least amount of time and for the least effort. And that's what people want. They want to be able to help themselves, because right now the rest is a disaster. You've looked at the statistics. People are not getting better. So
that is so true. Now, let me stop you right there, because it's exciting to talk to you. When you do the testing at Arbor Vitae, do you are the nutrients, the cell regulators, and the toxins all included in that testing?
Well, we do. We mail order the test. We always start with hair, because we don't want to load people up on more than they need. Again, we want to simplify it. We want to do the opposite of what Dr. Bob Torman said, is make this inexpensive, make it easy to do. Thank God, hair is an easy thing. Grabbing blood, or there are, blood spots and other things, but for this particular procedure, you don't need it. Once we start there, then we send a report to people when they've sent their hair, and it tells you from the website how to just download the form and fill the form out and collect your hair. It's not that difficult. Send it in. We then respond very rapidly, send a report back. And then based on what the report says, we may make other recommendations. In general, we like to try people on the core program, because we can accomplish so much. If people find it, about 60% of people will find that they will become balanced over time without getting these other tests. But if they don't respond well, or of course they're cheating, which some people do, but if they don't respond well, given they're doing a good job with it, then we might indicate the need for those other tests to be helpful.
Well,
but we like
excuse me for interrupting, because I'm right there with you on the testing. But what's your length of time that you assess before you say, hey, this isn't working? What is it, 3 months? Is it 6 months? What do you do in that regard?
Yeah, generally speaking, it's probably, because everybody's different. Remember, no two people are the same. We're all biochemically unique. We're all in different situations, age-wise, body chemistry-wise. We're assuming we're all the same, and we're not. We're so far apart. It's amazing. So usually within a couple of test periods, within probably 3-6 months, if it doesn't get to a certain point, we start saying, hey, you know what? You keep on getting that colitis pattern, because this test, we're reaching a little bit beyond what this test is capable of telling us. But it is telling us there's a disturbance. I'm just making this up. It's a true example. But there may be a parasite or something. So you know what? We need this other test to clear that up, because it's holding you back. Like a low potassium level is another indicator of like Helicobacter pylori, which you've heard of. There are all these associations we make. And if we can't clear them up in the most simplified, natural, inexpensive way, then we start recommending, you know what? And sometimes we can't, we will recommend other people, because we're international. So we'll say, look, there are docs out there that can pick up where we left off, but at least get you moving to clear these factors up, so you can get into what we call genetic signature, a perfect balance, if that's possible. And it is. We do it all the time. We actually are able to balance people out, clean up the toxins, all kinds of stuff you would not believe. I know you wanted to talk about some cases, but it's all got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And every isn't the place to start. Doing every test is not going to work for the average person.
That is so well said. And I mean, I think the issue is the structure of the follow-up. That does make a difference. Because if you have a sense of where you're going, then, and you have the follow-up. Now, do you retest in 3 to 6 months? Or do you look at it as hey, I'm still in a brain fog, we're missing something? What do you look at that then is the determinant of the next level of intervention?
Well, here's the beautiful part. Human error is taken out of this particular program. It's push-button digital interpolation. So the lab will compare the results against everybody else in there, what kind of progress that is expected, and will suggest the next step, if you will. So it depends on what your tests are, what the progress is, and people are different. Some people are in stress patterns. Oh, by the way, that is one of the most unbelievable parts of this. You hear about slow metabolisms and fast and stress. Well, thank gosh, we've inherited the knowledge bank for being able to separate. And this is from the University of Texas, along with the doctors that started this lab and a lab before it that we work with. They basically have been able to categorize 8 different types of what we call them genometabolic rate types. Mm-hmm. So, if you're a slower or a faster, or a stress type, if your adrenal glands are stressed out and you're in a burnout situation, your thyroid's off, or your sympathetic dominant, we can put all these patterns together so people know. And if we accelerate a slower metabolism to a faster metabolism, and this is noticed by a lot of our weight loss people, they're able to lose weight faster and able to eat more and not gain weight, simply because we're doing a better job of breaking down food into energy. We're digesting better, absorbing more, utilizing better, eliminating waste better, and ultimately not storing body fat as easily as a result. So it's pretty exciting to have that as a kind of a backbone for what we're looking at. People like to say, well, I'm a slow one, or I'm a fast one, or whatever that is. And it's kind of unique to the program, plus the disease predictor chart, things like that, being able to know the average American between 40 and 60 has about 12 to 14 diet-related diseases showing, even before it does in a doctor's office. Little insights like that. But all that adds up to a plan of action that the lab basically prints out based on a database that's monstrous. Actually started in 1903 on animals. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
Yeah, this test has been used on everybody from Seabiscuit, all the farm animals, livestock animals, racing animals, zoo animals, to help guide their feeds and diet. And Dr. Roger Williams in the 40s said, hey, why aren't we doing this for humans? He's known for more nutritional discoveries than anyone. And Shelley Hemler, who's one of his research assistants, is one of the authors of the PDR. I don't know if you know that, Physician's Desk Reference, especially the natural ones. He's in the University of San Diego, USD, yeah, or something like that. USD, University of San Diego. Yeah. But, and you know what? There was a huge study done. He provoked a study by the Department of Agriculture, every state college in the country, every land-grant college, farming college. It's called an evaluation of research in the United States on nutrition. And they concluded after 21 years, get this, and $500 million in 50s dollars, which is, what would you say, about $3 billion now, of looking at the relationship of nutrition to disease. They wanted to find out what disease is really caused by if nutrition was a factor. They concluded that, and this is a quote, I actually have it from Senator Orrin Hatch. I've actually got part of the study here. All diseases diet-related, and the solution to illness can be found in nutrition. And they define nutrition as testing what's in food before you eat it. Hence, we have ingredient lists. But then we left out the best part in common practice, testing what's in your body after you eat it to line the two up by simply applying more of the nutrients your body's low in, less of the ones it's high in, until the body can do it on its own, but by having the right foods that are commensurate with your genetic signature. And who knows where your genes have been, right? So we have to backtrack it a little bit.
Well, that is so interesting. I have another question as you're talking, because I'm following you right down the pathway. We do a lot of testing ourselves, and but the issue is I'm clearly a neophyte compared to what you're talking about here. And my number one test has always been, and I'm interested in your feedback, and I'm interested in getting educated by a guy like you, and that is my number one first line test has been IgG. I've always thought of it as sort of a watershed. You know, the tip of Mount Everest, everything is downstream from that, because if they have an immune system dysregulation, the system doesn't work efficiently and effectively. And so that's been my premier test. Give me a little feedback on where you are with IgG regarding the nutrients and the hair test. What do you think about those two as compared with each other?
Oh, I think it's wonderful, especially if you're dealing with brain allergies and such. But remember, there are 7 categories of immunoglobulins that can register an allergic reaction. Most people are familiar with IgE allergies, which provoke a histamine reaction, and you can give an antihistamine for. But about 95% of the other so-called hidden or delayed onset allergies are found in the IgG class 1 through 7, the IgMs, the IgS, the IgDs. There's a whole bunch of allergies. We'll call them hidden allergies. I don't know if you remember Dr. Bradley, who wrote the Food Nutrition Allergy Revolution. He's the one that popularized the IgG test. I knew him very well, and he's still around. But the point is that stuff can literally kills you. I mean, it kills you softly, like the song goes, killing me softly, because you don't always know about it. But the reality is we've put those tests on the chopping block, and then we've done the mineral test, the vitamin test, the aminos, and we actually found out there are calcium-related allergies and copper-related allergies and iron-related allergies. And so again, we can backtrack a lot of that to minerals. Histamine-related allergies based on certain patterns of, like calcium. If it's very low, it signifies that your mast cell degranulation is higher. And a lot of this they didn't even theorize. They just put it together, and then they concluded after, comparing apples and oranges, and they said, oh my gosh, look at this. So we're trying to do some of what you're doing, again, without doing the testing, but I think it's great to have that information. Well, how about IgA testing? Do you do IgA testing?
No, I don't. I mean, that's where I say I'm neophytic compared to you on this whole thing, and IgA, tell me about it.
Well, IgA measures gut allergies, and that's where a lot of the problem begins in the first place, because, and most everything does. That's the gateway to your entire body, and so many people have digestive problems. The IgA test is a good way to pick up allergies, but of course, a full functional panel from, mouth to, pardon my French, anus, which kind of puts together every parasite, all the functional levels, inflammatory markers, all of that, can help clear up a lot of problems, because when you open that digestive system and you know what gut allergies you have, and gut allergies, IgAs, again, people might say, well, I have a little nausea in the morning, but it's not so bad. I drink some water, it goes away. Hey, you know what? 99% of what's going on in your body doesn't register a symptom on the spot necessarily. So, but that's an indicator. There's something wrong. Could be Helicobacter pylori. It could be some other strange parasite.
Now, do you test for that yourself, Greg, with your Arbor vitae?
Yeah, we can. We will send, everything for us is mail order. I've been doing this. I had a company for years that started in 2001 that began the craze before Arbor Vitae absorbed us, personalized nutrition consultants. And we used to send every test in the mail out. And of course, we're doing that again, but we're trying to consolidate it to, again, starting where you got to start, working on the minerals and seeing if our basic program does the trick or not, and then going from there. So we're just trying to be methodical. We're trying to be systematic. We're trying to be scientific. But most of all, we're trying to be inexpensive.
That's a great attitude, Greg. I'm telling you. Yeah. When you were talking about the mouth and that other organ back there, I call it the mouth of the South. It works. It makes it so much easier because people know immediately what you're talking about. And when I start talking about IgG, I say it's the ghost immunoglobulin. G is for ghost. And IgE is the emergency immunoglobulin. So you can think about which one that is based on your symptoms. You got a ghost allergy, it's IgG. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's an easy way. And we get a lot of mileage out of the mouth of the South. And by the way, you'd be interested in the fact that the Mayo Clinic is very focused on transit time. And I've got a handout on transit time. It's a very expensive test, since you're talking about economy. Very expensive test, 69 cents. Check it out from the mouth to the South. You eat a can of corn, look at your watch, and see when it passes. And it's extremely instructive, and we get a lot of mileage out of it. I've got so many stories to tell you on that one, but you do this all the time, so I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit, but those are some things as soon as you said, mouth to anus, I said, okay, I got to tell them about that one. So.
Well, it's amazing too, because people, they'll be checked out with conventional means, and we'll still find all these problems with them. They'll do a coloscopy. They're given a clean bill of health, and we'll still find all these problems that you can't. I love tests. I love evidence. I love proof of what's, as you do. You're a consummate scientist with the human body, as I am. And in context, I tell people, look, let's just take a step back a second. Let's talk about genes and metabolism for a second, because that's what it's all about. Yeah. The genes are like a seed that you're about to plant. The genes say, hey, I want a little bit more of this. I want more of that food group, this nutrient, that, whatever it is. And it's in a plan for this seed to be to grow into the best plant it could possibly grow into. But if you put that seed in crummy soil, it's not going to happen. So you got to think of metabolism as soil, the soil with the seed. And the more you can sort that out, so digestion's optimized, absorption's optimized. In the body, the tricky part is making sure that the concentration and the timing of the things that are being delivered to the liver particularly is organized in such a way the liver can do what it needs to do and the cells can do what they have to do. And so many people are running around with, first of all, damaged digestive system, second of all, damaged livers. A lot of this doesn't happen without a lot of extra help. And they just assume that you are what you eat and your body just takes what it needs and drops the rest. But I got news for you. That's the furthest from the truth you can get, because you are what you retain and utilize from what you eat, which varies from person to person to person. And again, people don't understand. Just think in medicine. Just think with the medical part of what you do. Could you imagine somebody wanting to get tests for their brother or sister? Well, my brother is the same gene pool. I'm just going to come in. I'm going to take my blood test. Whatever drug you recommend, if you do, I want you to prescribe for my brother. That would be malpractice. You have to examine each person individually. That's how nutrition's supposed to be. You can't assume what's good for me is good for you. We can't do that. And it's such a mistake. Let me tell you, the number one cause of premature preventable death is from the side effect complications of correctly prescribed medications interacting and compounding over time. So number one, we're clogging ourselves up with drugs. Number two, we got these Haines studies, 78% of America, 40 years, looking at vitamin intake. 78% of America are taking so many of the wrong vitamins. They're doing more harm than good. Combine that with all these fad diets. Like, I hate to pick on anybody, but like the paleo diet leaves out whole food groups that are part of the genetic structure of Asians and Hispanics, and expect everybody to balance out with this idea that what's good for me is good for you. It just doesn't work. Medicine's about individuality. Nutritional medicine is about individuality. So the tests you do are an incredible service to your patients. And you're a brain doctor. You want your brain and your body to work. Do you know the philosophical terms for all this? I can give it to you. This is from my mentor, Dr. Hoffer.
I'm ready.
Well, there's dualistic interactionism, epiphenomenalism, and existentialism. Okay. The people like Bruce Lipton's on my advisory board. Bruce always says, you can think yourself well, epigenetics. I go, really, Bruce? How come your test isn't perfect? Oh, well, I guess it doesn't work as good. Well, then there are the epiphenomenalists who think everything you put in your body will get your brain to work perfectly, too. That's not necessarily true. But I'm a dualistic interactionist, where I believe they both impact each other. We can feed you something that makes you feel downright lousy. I mean, what do we have? About 23 neurotransmitters we know about. Where do you think this stuff comes from? It comes from processing the nutrients we eat. We can feed you a whole bunch of sugar. You'll feel differently than a whole bunch of alcohol. You'll feel differently when you have no food alone. I mean, that is magnified in small ways. With every distortion in the body can lead to brain dysfunction too, and vice versa. When your brain doesn't work as good, its feedback to the body is reduced. So it's a mind-body connection. That's why they call me the mind-body connector in a lot of publications, because you can't leave one without the other out of the equation. You have to consider both. So you have to work on calming your brain. Yeah, there are neurotransmitters that can kind of calm you down, but you've got to put things in. In fact, if we were just to divide up what runs the body, the Chinese were right. You've heard of the yin and the yang, right? Yep. Everybody has. In fact, the Chinese with the constitutional types, and all these, the Ayurvedics, the Egyptians, the Hippocratic method, was all based on trying to individualize for people without the test. Now, of course, we have the test. But what you really have, if you want to line them up for overweight problems. I call it the battle of the bulge. But we can literally line up the nutrients and cell regulators that stimulate more energy production against the ones that slow it down. If you're going to stimulate it, you got to have something to slow it down. See, but the problem is most people build up the ones that slow it down too much. And all they need to do is be within a certain range of getting the ones that stimulate energy production over the ones that are slowing it down. And that's where the problem is. We could go right down the list. Like a lot of people say, well, I saw on Oprah that, her lack of vitamin D is what was making her body fat problem, as Dr. Oz said. Well, I got news for you. Taking a lot of vitamin D antagonizes your thyroid. Actually, vitamin A stimulates your thyroid more than you see. People don't know that.
That's an important point. That's very important.
And they don't know there are these equations. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've looked at this for so long, and I do apologize. I'm just too full of detailed information. But
no, listen, I love it. I think it's great. Let me ask you this, because I'm getting more and more excited about what you're talking about, because you keep going down these very interesting paths that are so. They're applicable. They have a utilitarian value. So, I mean, that's great. Let me ask you this question. On your website, do you then have a way to train people in this to, like, for example, if I have a client, I want to send you somebody and say, listen, go over and look at this video over there on XYZ. Do you have videos there, or how do you, because this is deep stuff. This isn't something you can talk about in a half an hour. What's your situation in that regard?
Well, what people need beyond the test is very self-explanatory. The 30-some-odd page booklet is supposed to kind of guide people to do, what they need to do and answer all their questions. Of course, it doesn't. But beyond that, people can request extra consultations and such, and we'll go in and make sure they get it. Because our goal is to get people results so they stick with us. And there are clients, and we get their referrals. And that, by the way, is the fastest, or I should say, the largest, our growth in terms of people is mostly from referrals, because we do stuff like that. So our support system's extensive. And here's the beautiful part. Universal Studios right now has a whole bunch of the new videos we've just done. So people will be able to push a button for, okay, my calcium's high. What does that really mean? And hit a button, and for about a minute and a half, get an infotainment piece on what that really means, to really give them some education, but entertainment with interesting people. Like me, get crazy about this, passionate, because the darn thing works. I want a system of medicine in this country that's based on wellness, not sickness.
Absolutely. Now, are they linked on your site, Greg, or where you said Universal? I mean, it sounds like they're well produced. Are they on your site, or where does one find them?
We're about to amount them. Okay, they're not finished. The sound thing done, but Arbor Vitae Nutrition, if people go in and register, we'll automatically start putting out the tweets and everything else to let them know all this other stuff is up, because we've gone through some transformational changes since we've shifted from personalized nutrition consultants into Arbor Vitae, and Arbor Vitae is going to be the last word, because it's really what it is a bunch of Hollywood people that use this technology to make the better bodies that you see on movies, wanting everybody to do it. So that's kind of neat. That we have a little Hollywood power behind it. But again, we don't want, even though we've had a lot of movie stars and stuff, we don't want to pay anybody. We want people to tell the truth. So we have all these new testimonials, from just about everybody. We're going to be working with Giuseppe Franco. He's the hairstylist to the stars. He says, oh my God, he did a test. He says, my God, this is wonderful. And then, there's all these, you got to see this place. I go up to Beverly Hills all the time and hang out around here, Rodeo Drive in Cannon. Mm-hmm. This is, everybody up there seems to know about this, but in the rest of America, they don't realize this is at their fingertips.
Well, let me ask you another question here, because we're running low on time, but I want to personalize this a little bit for our listeners, a little more about who you are. I mean, the idea that you were a swimmer, an Olympic athlete, you were ready to go right there to perform in the Olympics, and you dropped over. You had, as I recall from reading it earlier, an asthma attack of some kind. Is that right?
Yeah, it's such a sad story. What really brought the whole thing on was, I was supposed to be in the 72 Olympics. My two best friends were killed in a car accident. I pulled them out. They died in my arms. I had post-traumatic stress disorder, which led to asthma. And essentially, I was, I couldn't go anywhere with sport. I obviously missed the Olympics and all of that. But what happened was I couldn't take no for an answer. I went to two allergists who did some of the tests, IgE tests. You remember the skin test, the skin prick test,
yep.
Which are obsolete, by the way.
Yes, they are.
Very few
I'm
people.
with you on that.
Well, you do the right one, but
We're speaking heresy, of course, but that's okay.
I'm going to be in trouble. You are. No. We didn't say it. It's no. I'm just kidding. But it's true. There are ways to do this that most people don't know. There's upgrades, there's new advances, and all kinds of stuff. But the reality is that I was stuck on a bunch of drugs. I was hospitalized 3 times. I had to take a year off of college to work for my parents because they were afraid I was going to die. And I thought it was a hopeless case. And a Dr. Carlton Fredericks, you ever hear of Dr. Carlton Fredericks? He had a radio show back in New York that my dad used to listen to. And I walked in the house one day after coming back from the company I worked for, his company. And he says, I have Dr. Fredericks online. Why don't you get on there? He's talking to me. Why don't you just tell me your story? So I went on and explained what I just told everybody. And, he said, hey, what are you allergic to? I said, cat dander, dust mites and dust. He says, oh, no, you probably got a whole bunch of other allergies like the ones you're talking about. Hidden allergies, call them that. He says, tell you what, you probably have a whole bunch of toxic stuff in you, a whole bunch of nutritional disturbances. You've been swimming in a pool since you were 7, every day for at least 2 hours. He says, there's all these things going on in you that nobody's looking at. So he suggested I go to this research center and get these tests, which I did. And out of 100 foods, I was allergic to 78. I was full of chlorine. I was full of mercury. My copper was off the chart. All these imbalances. And you know what the doctor said to me? He says, we can fix you. We had a low magnesium, which is classic for asthma. He says, all we got to do is change your diet, do a rotation diet, give you certain vitamins, do a chelation program, and I bet you within a short period of time, you'll be able to breathe again. A year and a half, Chuck, never had an asthma attack again. Went forward and became world-class in 3 other sports, track and field, powerlifting, and then bodybuilding, which the natural bodybuilding movement. I am like the final record maker in that because it helped me so much.
You got back.
I got back. And now I'm going to be 64, and they call me old strength at the gym. They go, oh, God, here's that Jack LaLanne kind of guy.
You can't get away with anything at the gym, I'm telling you. The guys are there. I mean, that's the reason to go. I mean, it's so much fun to share the pain, as it were. So let me ask you real quickly. I'm going to wrap it up a little bit. I want to invite you back. I don't know what I want to invite you back for at this moment, but some of the things that are occurring to me that are not in conventional medicine that really need attention, that are somewhat derivatively associated with what we're talking about. We didn't touch hormones. That is a very hot topic. That would be a very good one to talk about. And we mentioned the word toxin about 4 times, but nobody really knows what we're talking about there. And I would be interested in the testing protocols that you use for toxins because, Great Plains has some out there. There's a place called Dunwoody Labs in Georgia that does specific toxins. And I'd be interested in your feedback on the toxins because we've seen the same thing. We have people come in. I was doing brain imaging with Dan Amon up in DC. I opened his office up there back in 2003 and worked with Dan Amon for 4 years. And I could see we had people coming in from all over the country who really had a number of other problems that were not visible in SPECT imaging because SPECT imaging is really a macro view. It's not a microcellular view.
Right.
And so we'd ask people questions and, they were drinking well water in Nebraska and had developmental failure. I mean, it's pretty pervasive. You look at the people with autism and pervasive developmental delay in children. I'm a child psychiatrist. We see so many of these things that are relevant. I think we need to have another conversation if you'd be able to.
Oh, I'd love to. And I thoroughly enjoy talking to you because you are trying to bring the scientific truth of the matter to the people. There's so much nonsense out there that I applaud your efforts. All my mentors from Linus Pauling, you remember him, who's one of my mentors, Dr. Hoffer, Dr. Lipton, Dr. Monastersky from the American Heart Association. All these people are coming from the heart as you are. And unfortunately, it's mostly about politics and what's conventional. And a lot of people are so confused with all these products on the market and all these different fad diets and all these medications and all these drug commercials. Anybody that can get down to the brass tacks of really how to get started on cleaning all their act up, to me, is a hero. So you're one of my heroes, and I'm so glad to know you.
Well, I feel the same way about you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come out. It was, edifying on the top. It is like really stimulating me to think about what else I need to do. We have a lot to talk about, and I know our listeners would be very pleased to hear you again come back. So we'll do it sometime next year. I really do appreciate you coming on. So let's leave the website one more time. Mention your website one more time and tell us, is there anything special that we need to do? Just sign up when we get over there, huh?
Well, yes, it's Arbor Vitae, and there's a special gift we're giving everybody in your name, which I'll explain. There's a coupon and a coupon code. If they plug it in, the cost of the first test will be halved. It'll be over 52% off, which just makes it $165, which is amazingly low with a full-page report. But it's Arbor Vitae, ARBOR VITAE, nutrition.com. And if they go in, they just need to download, put their name in, and then it has a provision if they'd like to buy the test. But they need to put in, there's a coupon code box, and they need to put in, and this is our gift to your listeners. It's a code. It's 320 CA 1006, and that'll guarantee the low price, okay? And that's a gift from us to everybody. Again, New Year's is around the corner, so let's get our act together. That's what this is all about, right?
Absolutely.
And if people
every day, right?
And if people want to call, I know a lot of your listeners might be the older set. There is a phone number they can always call. If it's overwhelmed at the time and they can't pick it up, they'll call you back. It's 714-782-7107, or another one, 949-315-8338. Either way, tell us what you need. And if anybody wants a book besides the one you're giving away as our gift to whoever wins your competition, please purchase it from Arbor Vitae, not Amazon or some other place, because we donate a large portion of our proceeds to charities. So instead of Amazon walking away. So sorry to be such a long commercial.
No, I don't think it's commercial at all. Listen, you're doing people a serious favor by putting an opportunity out there, and we support what you're doing. We think it's just a great gift opportunity, and we hope we can get it out there soon. I don't think we'll be able to get it out before the end of the year, so we'll talk more about that when we get offline. So, Greg, thank you so much for coming on board. I really appreciate it. We'll be back again. We're going to do this again.
I can't wait. I really can't. So thank you very much, and happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you, my man.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Cold Brain Journal. We're working every day behind the scenes to bring you reports that connect research benches with those street trenches. Here we share the complexity of mind science because, as you know, details really do matter. One of the most pervasive, misunderstood challenges is how commonplace medications, like those written for ADHD, are used so regularly without clear guidelines. If you think you'd like more specifics, take a minute to download my 2-page PDF packed with video links and references on the absolute essentials of how to start ADHD medications. They're easily available at corebrainjournal.com/start. Thanks for listening. Do connect and stay tuned. Together we can make a difference.